Cornell Woolrich's short story Rear Window, initially titled It Had to Be Murder, made its debut in Dime Detective magazine in 1942. The narrative centers around the protagonist, Hal Jeffries, who finds himself confined to his New York apartment due to a broken leg during an oppressive summer heatwave. His apartment's rear window offers a view of the apartments on a parallel street, which becomes the focal point of his voyeuristic activities. As Jeff watches, he becomes increasingly convinced that one of his neighbors has committed murder. Woolrich was a renowned crime writer of his time, with several adaptations of his work making their way to the big screen, including Alfred Hitchcock's acclaimed 1954 film Rear Window. The story is recounted in the first person by Hal Jeffries himself. He begins by describing how he spends his recovery period spying on his neighbors through their windows. Among them, one couple particularly captures his attention. They live beneath an apartment undergoing renovations and appear to be facing difficulties. The wife's frail appearance contrasts with the husband's unemployment, as he tends to her needs during the nights. Jeff becomes engrossed in their story and relationship. On a restless night, Jeff notices their bedroom light remaining on with the shade pulled down. The following morning, he senses the husband's anxiety, attributing it to the wife's insomnia. However, as the day unfolds and the husband leaves and returns, Jeff observes something peculiar. The husband doesn't go into the bedroom as he typically does to check on his wife. That night, the sound of a cricket disturbs Jeff's housekeeper, Sam, who believes it foretells impending death. As the evening progresses, Jeff watches the neighbor packing his wife's belongings into a large trunk. The husband chooses to sleep in the living room instead of the bedroom, a behavior that perplexes Jeff. He also notices the man's increased consumption of alcohol. The next day, two men are admitted into the apartment by the husband, and they proceed to remove the trunk. Following the departure of the men, the husband indulges in more drinking. Eventually, he musters the courage to enter the bedroom and raises the shade. To Jeff's surprise, the bed is now empty. This only deepens his suspicion, leading him to enlist Sam's help in investigating the couple. Learning their names, Lars Thorwald and Anna Thorwald, Jeff becomes increasingly intrigued by the peculiar behavior of the husband. Why did he avoid the bedroom until the trunk was removed? Jeff decides to contact his detective friend, Boyne, seeking his assistance. Though hesitant at first, Boyne eventually agrees to look into the matter. However, his investigation reveals that the neighbors and the building superintendent all corroborate Thorwald's claim that Mrs. Thorwald was sent away for health reasons. In the meantime, while Thorwald is absent, Boyne and his team conduct a search of the apartment. They come across a postcard from Mrs. Thorwald in the mailbox, though the date is unreadable. Jeff suggests that the postcard could be an old one deliberately placed there to support Thorwald's story. He advises Boyne to trace the mysterious trunk, suspecting it might hold the wife's body. Later, an agitated Boyne returns to Jeff with an update: the trunk has been located, and Mrs. Thorwald is found alive. Boyne urges Jeff to let the matter go and departs. However, rather than dropping the issue, Jeff takes matters into his own hands. He writes a note asking, "What have you done with her?" and sends Sam to slip it under Thorwald's door. Simultaneously, Jeff retrieves a spyglass and peers through the window to observe Thorwald's reaction. He watches as Thorwald reads the note and detects fear in the man's demeanor. Jeff then witnesses the landlord showing a prospective tenant the apartment directly above Thorwald's. In a curious moment, the movements of Thorwald and the people above him synchronize as they move between windows. Although Jeff notices a subtle discrepancy in their actions, he struggles to explain or articulate it. In a bold move, Jeff calls the suspect over the telephone, revealing that he knows Thorwald's secret. He demands a bribe and arranges a meeting in a park. As Thorwald departs, he retrieves a gun, suggesting he may be planning to eliminate the person extorting him. Jeff then instructs Sam to enter Thorwald's home and subtly disturb the scene, giving the impression that someone has been searching the place. As Sam enters Thorwald's apartment, Jeff watches intently, ensuring that Sam leaves just moments before Thorwald returns. Subsequently, Jeff places another call to Thorwald. This time, he suggests that he has found something crucial, hoping that Thorwald's reaction might inadvertently reveal the location of the body. However, Thorwald quickly assesses his apartment, realizes that Jeff is bluffing, and hangs up. Jeff's thoughts return to the strange incident involving Thorwald's mimicry of the movements of the potential tenants in the apartment above. Just then, his phone rings, interrupting his contemplation. Expecting it to be Boyne, Jeff answers with a cautious hello, but receives no response. The light in Thorwald's apartment suddenly flickers on. In an unsettling moment, it appears as though Thorwald gazes directly at Jeff's window before turning off the light and leaving. Fearing that the brief phone call allowed Thorwald to identify his blackmailer and his location, Jeff becomes alarmed when he hears someone attempting to open his door. Mistakenly assuming it's Sam returning, Jeff has a realization about the peculiar discrepancy in movement he observed earlier. Attempting to reach Boyne on the phone, he fails to make contact before the line is abruptly cut. Thorwald has severed the telephone wire. It dawns on Jeff that he is in grave danger, and he seizes a bust of a philosopher, positioning it in a way that Thorwald, upon entering, would mistake it for Jeff's head. A sudden disturbance at the door startles Thorwald and sends him fleeing. Scaling his own building to the roof, Thorwald tries to escape, but his pursuer, Boyne, arrives just in time. From Jeff's window, Boyne shoots Thorwald, causing him to fall to the courtyard below. As Boyne arrives, Jeff informs him of the body's location. Jeff explains that the apartment above Thorwald's has an elevated kitchen and a sunken living room, accounting for the earlier inconsistency in movement that he had noticed. Thorwald had concealed the body within the fresh cement of the apartment that was currently undergoing renovation. Boyne validates this hypothesis and clarifies his reason for showing up at Jeff's apartment. Discrepancies between the descriptions of Mrs. Thorwald in the countryside and the accounts provided by the tenants lead Boyne to deduce that the woman posing as Mrs. Thorwald was actually Thorwald's accomplice, rather than his wife. Together, Jeff and Boyne piece together Thorwald's sinister plan. Faced with financial difficulties and overwhelmed by the care of his ailing wife, Thorwald had hatched a cunning scheme. He had taken out an insurance policy on his wife and then methodically poisoned her over time. When Mrs. Thorwald began to suspect his intentions, he expedited his plot and ultimately murdered her. As the narrative comes to a close, the doctor arrives to attend to Jeff's injury. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.